Hi, I'm Phill Roberts and I'm the head of safety for Freightliner. I've worked in safety for about 10 years now. I've worked in industries like gas, logistics, and manufacturing, and most of my experience is around building management systems and cultures that empower people, engage with people, and move us slightly away from focusing on just compliance and really bring people to the forefront of safety. So I am so passionate around safety because my career was sort of thrust upon me. I don't know anyone that's been a part of safety and said, they grew up wanting to be it. I found my way into it and then found this absolute treasure trove of information and passionate people that I fell in love with. I started off in manufacturing and got a very good grounding in what is now sort of being called traditional safety. Very much compliance, very much agree with the law and ensure that the law is met no matter what. And actually then I was able to move into places like gas infrastructure, which allowed me to then explore the different elements of actually empowering people and not just focusing on the compliance area. Actually makes compliance easier and better. To even more recently, I worked in galvanizing, which was a heavy industry that you aren't really able to write a safe system of work for. You have to put a lot of trust into the person, into the operator, to know how to hang the equipment, how to dip everything. It can't just be written as a standard thing that everyone follows. Each piece, even if they look the same, has to be treated differently. And now moving into logistics and transport, we have drivers both in road and rail that operate across this country very much independently, and we have to trust them to make decisions on the road and on the rail every single day. And being a part of safety allows me to be in all of these different industries, but actually really embrace their differences and embrace what I can learn from them. So I just think, for me, the safety industry doesn't get the love that it deserves. It's an amazing opportunity for people to really explore different viewpoints, different avenues, and find different and better ways of doing anything. In terms of skills, I believe that the practitioner is quite well-rounded in what they do. We have to interpret lots of data. We have to be able to talk at different levels to make sure that we're selling our new ideas or getting buy-in. We are able to hold discussions with various different topics, even if they're not necessarily safety related. We have to be able to be involved with them to understand what that impact might have on safety. So really the skill sets that we've got are quite broad, and I think they're broad enough for us to be able to go into the future and adapt as needed. What I think we need to just be aware of and be open to is just the new ideas that are coming out. Psychological safety, human fallibility, just different approaches to how we can achieve both compliance but empowerment at the same time. There's many different people at the moment, psychologists that are taking more of a human brain and physiological approach to safety that are coming into our world now. And we just have to foster an environment that allows them to come in, share these ideas, and hopefully grow us. In terms of an approach, I have been working on how do you study safety. So we all know, there's a sort of more of an accepted theory now that safety isn't something that safety does. We are a part of it. We are enablers. The operations do it and all of that. What I've found is that kind of you lose the sort of identity of the safety team and the safety practitioner. So what I try to install in my team and myself is that we as practitioners are now the ability to study safety. So what I mean by that is we are looking at any change and going, we are predicting an outcome to this change, whether that's a safe system of work change, whether that's a process, whether that is a new piece of work coming in. What we are trying to do is predict what is going to happen and how that affects the outcome. What we then do is create a methodology to actually prove or disprove what we are suggesting will happen. And that doesn't mean that if what we predict happens is always wrong, but it just gives us something to sort of benchmark against. And as we go through that method, we then study the outcome. We then see what happens, how close it was to the sort of the hypothesis, and then try to understand why we were maybe, incorrect in our hypothesis. But also, was the outcome, even if different, was that actually more desirable or less desirable? If it's more desirable, we push on, we keep going, and we keep trying to foster that improvement. If it's less desirable, well, then we start with a new hypothesis, a new change, and we try and go again. So for me, it's about just changing the focus of the safety practitioner and just helping them to realize, if you study the effects of outcome, actually the role of safety becomes a lot more defined, and it can really help to make an impact on business. Yeah, this is one of the most difficult balancing acts to do, because we work in a legislative culture and framework that it wants to hold people to account, and there's always a slight element of blame within that. However, one of the key things that I've loved the thought of is this idea of restorative justice, and the thought process of, if something has occurred, how do you restore people's faith in that system or in that process? And when you start to ask that question first, you stop looking at, why did this go wrong and what was that person's involvement? You're now starting to say, okay, if I now need to put this person back into that situation, how do I ensure that they are confident they're going to operate in a safe way and not have this outcome? That for me was a game changer. When you start looking at it in that way, you start opening up conversations. So people at the start will be a little bit skeptical. As you go forward and they start to see that actually they are restoring that faith, they are actually really focusing on why that person has lost the ability to work in this process now, they will start coming up with ideas. They will start talking to you about different avenues of, well, actually, these things have been occurring for years, but I never spoke up about it because of X, Y, and Z. If they're not fearing the retribution side of things, you'll find that they're more engaging with actually getting involved with a conversation afterwards, or speaking to people about, well, actually, how can I share my story? How can I make sure this doesn't happen to other people? And they become ambassadors for safety without the title. And those are always the elements that you want to improve on. What I would say is that when you're trying to get that balance and trying to get that bit between accountability and blame, you also have to ensure that when people are found to deliberately break the rules or deliberately try to misguide an investigation or just not have that same truthful and openness, that sort of behavior is something that you want to really not crack down on, for one of the better phrase, but that's what you don't want to allow. In my career, I have been more likely to remove a contractor or someone from a job for lying to me than having an incident, even if they've not followed a process, even if they've not done something. When you look into it, you normally find there are system reinforcement issues around that. However, the lying, the not being open, that's a choice that is made, and that is a behaviour that we don't want to reinforce throughout our business. And that doesn't mean that we would get rid of them. It's normally a conversation to understand what that's going on. But I would be a lot harsher on that than ever anyone having a near miss or an incident, because they've already had that. Once they've had that incident, they've had that near miss, they've already built a bit of fear into themselves. They've already felt something. They're already they're the most receptive they're ever going to be to safety information at that moment. So that I want to utilize, that I want to be able to work with and mold and shape to really impact the business. But yeah, so when you're looking at it, I think if you start to see behaviours that are really truly undesired, that holding back information, not being open, that's where I would focus a lot more on that accountability side, where people are being open and really trying to help you understand why things have occurred the way they are. You get a better feeling that actually I can go down that route of empowerment and removal of blame and really focus on the learning. That's always been a good starting point for me. And once you've then started that, you find investigations and incident reports flow a lot easier, because you've already removed the one true barrier to getting that real information. So yeah, that would be my starting point. Yeah, so the best example I have of this was in a previous role. An audit team were always they were able to do their compliance checks. They were able to go through their audits, and whenever they provided the report, there was never the buy-in that we wanted. There was always this little bit of an element. As soon as something was framed as a non-conformance, it just seemed to shut down the conversation. People just wanted to get rid of that non-conformance and move on. And what we started to learn was it was all to do with they felt like they were being blamed for failing the system. We had conversations. We had very good relationships with the operations teams, but not when it came to these reports. So when we started to open up to them and say, well, look, where's this defensiveness coming from? Why are actions taking forever to close out, or they're being closed out really quickly and not effectively? What is the reason behind this? We started to uncover that there's a blame associated with a non-conformance, and this was internal audit. So we were using that wording to sort of adhere, to align with other audits that would be had. And what we found is, after working with them and starting to understand, okay, so what terminology could we use? And we went to one of satisfactory, requires improvement, or requires urgent attention. And that terminology for those groups, for that business, it removed that point of actually it was a non-conformance and that was a failure. Requiring urgent attention meant actually as a business we could stop, focus and get that action resolved now. Requiring attention but not urgent meant that actually they had a bit more time, and they felt like they could talk to us and really get to the bottom of why that was occurring. And then satisfactory was, this is exactly how we see it, and this is what we said we were going to do, and we have achieved it. And all that did, it was a simple terminology change, but what that did was it just helped us engage with people so much better than we've ever had before. And you don't really get to see the impact of a no blame culture until you do those little things. And it wasn't massive. Like, really, it was a change of a process. It was a little matrix box that was changed, but it just shifted that organization's mentality, and they became so much more open to conversation. We were then able to share that with our group audit team, and they took a very similar approach as well when they audited us, and found again that we were more open, that there wasn't this blame, and actually they were more willing to talk to us after the event as well, where we would get together, we would exchange more ideas. And the audit team now wasn't a function that came in, ticked a box and left. They became a part of that operation. So that removal of blame, even as simple something as just changing how we define system improvements, can really change and really open up a more agile and flexible way of working for an organization. So you're about to enter a world that is so diverse in thought that you can find so many different ways to achieve anything in safety. There isn't really one right way. For someone who is coming in new to the industry, I would just say be a sponge. Learn everything you can, question everything, and really focus on building those relationships. As you go through your training, as you go through apprenticeships and all that stuff, you'll learn the technical stuff. The day-to-day, doing a risk assessment, you'll embed and you'll learn it. But if you can start by building relationships and having your eyes open to the learning that the world of safety can provide, I genuinely think you'll make a massive difference to the industry. The industry is going through, I think, a bit of a change at the moment. There's new ideas, there's fresh perspectives coming in, and for every new person that is joining the business, I think you've got probably the best opportunity that you'll ever have to make a change, not just to your business, but to the whole industry of safety. So yeah, I think that's it. Just really enjoy it because it's got such a rewarding career.